Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Beyond the Hood with Tractor Zoom. I'm your host, Andy Campbell, and I am privileged and honored to be joined today by John Schmeiser, currently the COO of VisorPro. John, let me first of all, before I go into the detail about you and all the questions, just thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andy. Privileged to be asked. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to our discussion as well, too.
Yes, likewise. And I'm going to try to summarize all of your background about how you got from there to here succinctly, and I guarantee I'm going to screw it up, so feel free to interrupt me. But John, in his current role of COO, is really helping the industry with digital transformation. And this is not new to John's background. So John has been with the industry. By the time this podcast actually gets dropped, congratulations, John, on 30 years plus a couple of weeks maybe of being in the industry association world. But that world, those organizations has changed over time. And so from what I believe, initially you were with the Western Equipment Dealers Association.
With Canada West. Started in 1996 with Canada West.
Wow. And then that merged into the Western Equipment Dealers Association. Is that correct?
That's correct, in 2014. And then we added a number of other regional associations into Western as well. And then in 2022, merged 5 associations into the North American Equipment Dealers Association. And that's what it's called now. And still do some work with the association. My primary role is with VisorPro, but the Dealers Association still wants me to help out from time to time, and there's a great fit because my experience and background with VisorPro and the relationships I developed with dealers, but in addition to that, VisorPro is developed by equipment dealers for equipment dealers, so it's just a perfect extension of what I had been doing with the dealer world for the last 30 years.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And your experience doing this transformation, before it was large organizations, mergers, and getting cultures to come together. But that's not entirely different than the work that you're doing now is really working within dealerships and getting them to transform and change their ways as well, right?
That's so correct. And the reality of it is I was privileged to be asked by a long-range planning committee of 10 dealers from across North America about putting this merger together. But at the same time, we still had to run the association, and the train still had to run on time. We still had to meet budget. We still had to be involved in manufacturer relations and government affairs while we're doing all of these mergers. And the operational side at NADA both and at Western as well too, meant working with dealers on partner programs that would help them, within their business. And so that was a core function of NADA, really to help dealers succeed. And helping dealers succeed, meant in government affairs. It meant in manufacturer relations. It meant in partner programs like VisorPro. It's just a natural for NADA to be involved with and working with Rob Syke, our CEO, on her team on developing a product that's going to help dealers succeed.
Well, on that topic then, let's begin there because you spent 25 now, almost 30 years in the association world. And so what made you decide to move from that side of the industry to more of the tech solution providers for dealerships?
So if I back up to about 2022, I think it was Rob Syke, our CEO, he changed the direction of the company. The parent company is T1 Technology Corp. And that's when ChatGPT dropped. And when ChatGPT dropped, he was looking to see if there was an application of using artificial intelligence and ChatGPT over a farmer-facing app that he had developed. And the answer was not really. But in speaking to some equipment dealers, what they were talking about was some of those pain points that we have in the service department. And those equipment dealers were asking, T1 and Rob, well, can we use AI in the service department to take care of the customer better? And the answer was yes. And so after that conversation with equipment dealers, Rob came to me to the North American Equipment Dealers Association in my capacity as the Chief Operating Officer and said, hey, I think we've got something here it can really help equipment dealers. And so what I did was, research, worked with Rob, and eventually put it before NATA's partner program committee. And Rob got immediate insights about how the dealers responded to this, about how they could see how it was going to help their business. And he also got some suggestions of some platform features that dealers would like to see in VisorPro. So he just got incredible feedback. And I saw this dynamic taking place at our board table where, our 13 dealers on our board of directors were excited about this product. They were suggesting, changes, upgrades to make it even better. And I was the liaison between Rob, and the Dealers Association working on this together. And so when we made some changes at NATA and how we were doing the structuring out of the merger plan that I had built, I was, given the opportunity to come work with Rob. And I did that because of the background that I had with the evolution of VisorPro to where it had been, as well as my experience and seeing the dealer's reaction, but also I was seeing the customer response from it. And I just saw incredible potential of this product, this platform, helping increase the profitability in the aftermarket department. And we can get into that, Andy, but that's something that I had just seen over the years. At NATA, we would do a cost of doing business study, and we would get the financial reports from dealers, and we would see where their absorption rate was on a North American average. We would see where their service tech efficiency was on a North American average. We were seeing how much dealers were losing on warranty work that they were doing for manufacturers. So it was so attractive to me, where I spent 30 years of my career helping dealers succeed, to be able to transition to a software product that was going to help dealers succeed in some of those problem areas or pain points within the dealership.
And so if that really encompasses from then your experience to coming on board with VisorPro and now, what going forward do you think are some of the major problems that you continue to see that the industry has not yet fully solved?
Yeah, so I'll start with just kind of the state of the industry right now, and you guys know this better than anybody else with the data that you're tracking, the valuation data, but we're seeing a challenge on the whole goods side right now. Manufacturers are continuing to make product. Used equipment inventory levels are starting to grow or have been growing, and there's some concerns in the marketplace about sales forecasts and commodity prices and all of that. But the standard through all of that is the parts and service business is a constant, that keeps those doors open when the whole goods market slows down a little bit. And when we see an absorption rate average of 75% or less across North America, or we see a service tech efficiency rate around that same number, we know that there's room to grow. And certainly on the absorption rate, if a dealer can get their absorption rate up to 100%, that covers off all of the overhead, the operating costs of the business, and it gives them a little bit more sustainability on the whole goods side. And where this gap is right now, we do have some sectors out there like industrial or construction where their absorption rate is close to 100%, and they're very profitable about that. So I've seen that there's room to grow on the aftermarket department. And VisorPro has become just an incredible tool in the dealer's toolbox to increase the tech efficiency, to increase the absorption rate, and ultimately strengthen the dealerships, make them not only sustainable but able to thrive and grow into the future. So it's kind of nice to see this tool that is providing results in a practical way, not theoretical way, but in a very practical way, because some of the ROI reviews that we've done and case studies we've done from existing dealers is showing that this is putting a lot of money to the bottom line on the aftermarket department.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for that, given the natural state of our industry right now and how much longer operators are holding on to their whole goods. We expect that these service bays are going to be, full for the next couple of years as people continue to hang on to their machines for a little bit longer. And we're starting to actually see some of that flesh out with our data already.
And I'm not surprised. And here's the challenge that we have. I think your assessment of the market is correct. Customers are hanging on to equipment longer, but we're having a difficult time in increasing the capacity of our technicians. Where one of our studies at the North American Equipment Dealers Association was there was about an 8% annual attrition rate of technicians that were leaving the industry because of retirement or other factors. And one survey that we did was that each location in North America, so we're talking at 6,000 plus locations, would take on an additional 2 or perhaps 2.5 techs if they could find them without having to increase any bricks and mortar, making their shop bigger or anything like that. So there was already a demand on our techs to not only fix it right the first time, but to fix it quickly. And so now with this new dynamic of customers hanging on to their equipment longer, the longer they hang on to it, the more work that needs to be done. And the customer expectation is that it's fixed quickly. Now we have an issue of how do we get that equipment fixed quicker? And that's where VisorPro's one of its strengths comes in, because our case studies with our customer base is showing that the technician is saving a minimum of 30 minutes a day on researching what has to be done on a repair. And you take that 30 minutes a day, that's another 2.5 hours per week. Theoretically, that technician is available for that extra 2.5 hours a week to fix more equipment. So that's a way to get more equipment through the shop, keep the customer happier, and also because of the data set that we have of the work order history and the repair information, we're giving a lot of confidence in our techs that they can fix it right the first time. And on top of that, let's add one more variable in here. An unintended benefit of VisorPro today is our dealers are using it as a training tool or an attraction tool for techs to come into the industry. Because how do we teach a tech how to learn how to fix farm equipment? Typically, we mentor them with an experienced tech that's been around the industry for a while. It's a very successful strategy. But every time we do that, that is taking somebody away from doing actual repair work. So we're seeing that our younger techs who aren't afraid of technology, who aren't afraid of artificial intelligence, are saying, hey, I don't need the experience and wisdom of a long-time tech to repair this equipment. I'm going to use VisorPro because everything I need to know is there, and I can follow the steps based on the equipment dealer's data set to get up to speed very, very quickly. So that's also helping that technician shortage that we have in the industry.
On that point, then, on those technicians joining the market, does that change how different dealerships are adopting technology? And so I'm specifically thinking here of small independents versus regional or much larger dealership groups. Traditionally that digital transformation, that digital adoption has been a challenge. But you're saying some of these younger techs coming in, we can all assume why they might adopt tech faster. So what are you seeing out in industry? Is it moving fast enough in terms of digital transformation and tech adoption?
No, I don't think it is. And I think historically our industry has been slow adopters. But at the same time, we do have some early adopters out there. And one of the great things about this industry is how powerful a dealer-to-dealer referral is. So we're starting to see some slow adopters acknowledge and recognize what an early adopter is doing. And that mindset is, okay, if it's working for them, it probably could work for me. And that's just one of those barriers that we have historically in the industry. And I've heard this, numerous times over my career, that the automotive industry or even the trucking industry is a little bit more advanced when it comes to adopting technology and new ideas. And in some cases, the farm equipment industry could be as much as 10 years behind. That's just the reality that we're in. But I think that gap is changing because we've seen a digital transformation take place. Yes, it's not as fast as the auto industry, but I think the dealer of today, if they want to be a dealer of the future, is starting to recognize we have to adopt new technologies. We have to engage in the digital transformation because our competitors are starting to do it. And if we don't, we're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and that kind of gets to the next question I was going to ask you, but it we're seeing that as well on the tractor zoom side, where 2 to 3 years ago, certainly pre-pandemic too, that there was a much more of a reluctance for this adoption. And while it's not evenly and it's not across the board, that there is much more of a willingness to adopt new technologies and at least be curious, I'd say, on exploring what new technology, especially AI, can do for these dealerships.
Yeah, and here's a good example. With your ERP system, the app that you guys have purchased, and going into that space, I've still walked into dealerships that I would call professional organizations, dealerships of the future, that are still doing deals on paper, right? And part of the issue is the feedback I would get. We've been pretty successful over the last 60 years in doing business the way that we do it and the relationship that we have with our customers. So I'm not exactly sure I need to make that investment in a new digital tool because we've been successful. And I think that's all well and good up until a point where the industry starts passing you by. And if you don't get involved in a digital transformation and adopt new technology tools, eventually that gap is going to be really, really large when the industry contracts. And we just had this incredible run up in sales because of the supply chain issues that we had during the COVID period. And if a dealer could get it, they were going to sell it, but the manufacturer had difficulty making it. And now the COVID, supply chain issues and production issues are all behind us, and the manufacturers want those plants running, full steam ahead. And now the market's softened for a variety of reasons. I think it's during these soft periods in the market where the dealer that's adopted the digital tools, the new technology, the new AI things out there, those are going to be the ones that are come through this little gully, quicker. And what we're starting to see too is, like with some of our adopters of VisorPro, they're now looking at what else we can use AI for in other parts of the dealership. And they're really looking into predictive analysis, looking at our customer database and what insights can we use AI to glean out of our customer database about what their buying habits could be in the future. But what about predictive failures? In our conversations with manufacturers, they want to talk to us about, we want to know what type of failures we're going to see around 5,000 hours or 10,000 hours on this. And that's where AI is going, into that predictive analysis. And I think some of the forward-thinking dealers are already, trying to go down that path of we can adopt AI in the aftermarket department with VisorPro, but now can VisorPro be expanded into the other areas within our business to give us better data and help us make better equipment ordering decisions, parts inventory decisions, and customer interactions when that customer is ready to trade.
Yes. And that gets to a little bit of what I want to talk to you about next, of what did a dealership, especially a technician or a service advisor parts person, what did their day look like before Vi? And now what does it look like after? And what could it look like going forward into the future?
Yeah, Andy, I really like your question because I would hear reports that a technician could spend 2 to 3 hours researching a problem or diagnosing a problem, and then maybe spending 30 minutes on a repair. And that is one thing where Vi is really driving efficiencies because they're getting the answer in 5 seconds. And then they can spend their time on the repair. So that efficiency alone for a technician is groundbreaking. But there's more to it than that. That's just on the actual repair. When a technician is going out to do a service call, sometimes he doesn't know what the problem is. And so how does he load up his service truck with the proper parts to make sure he only has to make one trip? Vi's giving him the ability to look at similar work orders as well as what else could be looked at, and then making sure that that parts vehicle is full with the proper parts that they need to do that service call. Again, fix it right the first time, but only make one trip to and from the customer. But it goes on. If you're a service manager and you're scheduling service, you're going to be looking at your past work order history and the hours spent on this when you're assigning incoming work orders to your technicians. From a service writer perspective, when you're providing a quote out to the customer, if you tell the customer that repair is going to take between 5 and 8 hours, well, the customer heard 5. And if it's going to take you 8 hours, well, the customer only wants to pay for 5. So a lot of dealers are writing that off. VisorPro gives you the tool to quote service repairs accurately. You're exploring a huge database of similar repairs from your dealership and other dealerships that you've decided to share your work orders with. So you have this critical mass of work orders where Vi will do the AI analysis to give that service writer the right number on hours that's going to take. In addition to that, the parts that it's going to take as well too. And then there's one more step, and this is an incredible time saver, another benefit of VisorPro, where we get calls coming in from the customer on a daily basis to the parts counter, and they could be as simple as what's the oil capacity and oil type on this unit. Empowering the parts counter person with VisorPro can give that customer that quick answer without the parts counter person chasing down a service manager or a service tech to get the answer. So there's incredible savings of time there as well. So we can keep our techs working on that equipment as opposed to taking answers from questions. And Andy, I know you know this like I know this. This is a relationship-based business, and a customer may have the operator's manual sitting in their lap while they're driving the combine, but it's still easier for them to pick up the phone and call the dealership than it is to turn through a few pages in the operator's manual to get that answer. So if we can empower our people at that point of first contact to give those quick answers to the customer right away when they call, that's a win for the dealership.
It is.
If we can say to the customer, here's the answer without, hey, I'll look it up and call you back in a half an hour, that's a win for the dealership. And the customer feels that that dealership is taking better care of them as well, too, when they have an interaction like that.
Right. Yeah, there's almost a visceral gratification that comes, and I know this just from sitting in the combine, that with the owner's manual in my lap, that there's a chance I could get the question wrong, and I'm probably even thumbing through it, looking at it, but also just to have that human-to-human interaction and a little bit of the reassurance, like, okay, so, my friend on the other end of this line also reassures me that this is the solution. And it gives me confidence, and it gives you a little bit of that just human-to-human interaction that you don't always get when you're out there in the field. And so there's so many of those aspects that encourage the farmer to want to pick up the phone. I don't think you're going to fully change that behavior. I don't know if you want to, but you're right. Having them answer immediately back of this is what you need to do, it builds up so much confidence in them.
And on one hand, I've heard dealers tell me they love it when a customer calls. Okay, even if it's a trivial thing, because that just reinforces that customer-dealer relationship. Like, hey, we're here to take care of you after you've bought that whole good from us, right? So what we're doing is we're giving the dealership staff a tool to take care of that customer even better by getting them that quick answer. We don't want to lose that customer interaction. Dealers say that's important, and every time that customer interaction is positive, that's a higher probability that that customer is going to buy new equipment from us in the future.
Right. And that relationship, those answers might tie in a little bit to your new release. So you have Vi 3.0, which I've started to look into a little bit online, but obviously I do not know it as well as you do. So how about you update me a little bit on the 3.0 update?
So 3.0 is our foray into agentic AI, where under 2.0 version, you would enter in a question, you'd enter the model, the make and the model, and you'd ask the question, how do I repair the feeder chain on this ideal 9 combine, as an example. And VisorPro 2.0 would go through all the service information, all the work orders, and it would give you that information. What agentic or 3.0 goes into, it becomes more conversational, where Vi 3.0 is looking at the data and it's looking at the information, and then it's suggesting back to the user about things to look at or things to consider. So, for example, if I enter in the same question, how do I repair the feeder chain? It will ask you, do you want me to look at what your standard repair times are for this repair? And so you can say, yes, I do. Do you want me to create a parts list that you're going to need before you go out and see the customer and repair this feeder chain? And the answer is yes. Do you want me to search the work orders from ideal 10 combines as well as the 9, because replacing the feeder chain should be a very similar repair? And you can say yes. So the biggest difference with using agentic AI is the conversational nature and the suggestions that's coming back from what we found. We're suggesting you look at this as well. So it's helping that technician get those answers even quicker and everything else that goes with it. Thinking of things that are related to that question. A very common question that's coming up with agentic AI is, okay, I'm going out to do the service call on repairing this feeder chain, but now the agentic 3.0 is suggesting, do you want me to put together a list of other repairs that you should look at or other things that you should look at while you're repairing the feeder chain? And that's the beauty of agentic AI and why 3.0 has become so popular and is really taking off with our customer base. It's that next level generation of AI that's helping us think through a problem as opposed to just giving us the data on how a repair is done.
Huh. And speaking of those generational changes, I was just talking with Hank Monsager, our lead data manager, on the benefits of AI and everything this morning. And it was all, not all, but most dove down into time saving. You know,
Yes.
you're essentially saving time that would have been wasted elsewhere, whether it's searching, whether it's mistakes, and then relearning. And you guys have another aspect that I think is saving time in a story writing feature, but I think it also helps with effectiveness or efficiency. Do you want to explain the story writing feature a little bit, and then really elaborate on the benefits that dealers are getting out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a new feature that we launched as part of VisorPro, included in the 3.0 package that was launched at the beginning of May. And what VisorPro is doing in StoryWriter is taking technicians' notes or something that he recorded into the platform, and he's creating a work order ready story that caused complaint and correction. And this aligns a lot with the warranty requirements, warranty submission requirements that come from our major manufacturers. They want to see, complaint cause and correction in this. But Andy, I've seen it in equipment dealers' work order histories where the technician wrote, "It was broken and I fixed it." Well, that's not good enough, right? That's not good enough for a warranty claim, and it's certainly not good enough for a customer who's paying that repair bill. So what StoryWriter does is take data and information coming from the technician, whether he recorded himself, whether he just wrote down a few things about what he did, or from a past work order, and puts it all together in a story. And here's another unintended benefit that we didn't anticipate, but back in the day, working with our foundations, our dealer association foundations, we went on foreign recruitment trips where we brought technicians over from Germany and the Ukraine. And for those whose English is a second language, they're finding StoryWriter as a godsend because they can dictate what they did on the repair in their, with all due respect, broken English, and out comes a very polished version of what repair that was done. We've heard this over and over and over. We got to find a way to help our technicians write better stories, and StoryWriter is doing that because even with minimal information and then looking at what repairs have been done, we can get a warranty submission ready, repair story done, or a customer justifiable repair story with limited information coming from the technician on the repair that they did.
So how much of this does overlaps with your past work at the association? Because I know that you've done a lot of work in the association in the past, fighting for dealerships specifically on warranty repair and
Yeah.
submission and honoring those warranties. So this seems like a very, I don't want to say just circumstantial, but or fortuitous overlap. I'm sure some of it is intentional, but it seems like the stars are aligning.
Are they ever? And one thing in my career with the Dealers Association is I had the privilege of serving on the industry relations task force, where we would meet with all the major manufacturers, their associations, some key short line manufacturers at least once per year. And in doing that for 20 years, I can't recall one meeting where warranty reimbursement wasn't a discussion item. And the manufacturers would tell us if the dealers would submit better warranty claims, we would approve them quicker. But they're always missing information that they need. And here's where VisorPro just connects those dots. And one of the attractions for me, being part of the company and solving this issue of warranty claim slippage or shortfall is VisorPro is a tool that fills in those gaps. If CNH or John Deere or AGCO says, we need this information and we need these steps done before we're going to approve a warranty claim, we can just inject that into VisorPro. So we can have the technician, like when he's filling out a warranty claim, have all of that information handy in one spot that, okay, the manufacturer's requiring that you do a pressure test, as an example. So the technician knows that for this warranty claim to be approved when it's submitted the first time, he has to do these steps. So it's making the job of the service writer easier as well too, when they submit the warranty claims, because VisorPro is helping them have all of that relevant or needed information for a warranty claim to be approved the first time. I look at it from the manufacturer perspective. If the dealer is providing them all the information that they need based on their criteria for a successful warranty claim to be processed, the dealer to be paid, we're making their job easier as well too. We're removing
Right.
some of that frustration that service writer has, going back to the tech, going back to the company, and we just waste time. We just waste time by doing that. So if we can have all that information loaded about what they need, what the tech needs to be done, needs to do, and then story writer helping write a great story, we know that we're going to get those warranty claims processed quicker and correctly the first time.
Okay, good. So I want to shift a little bit and still kind of keep in mind this, to talk about the OEMs and the influence that they
Yeah.
have, but broaden it out a little bit and then start talking about the adoption of tech. So the way I want to frame this next question is that there has been talk and there's certainly some worry in the industry about OEMs going direct to customers.
Yes.
But even regardless of that, that I think dealerships are looking at ways to cement their relationship and their competitive advantage with customers. So whether it's protecting that against OEMs going direct to customers, or even protecting it against some other competition coming into the customers, how does a dealership that's operationally sharp, that's tech advanced, use those skill sets to mitigate that external threat, whether it's OEM, whether it's real or perceived, whether it's competition? How do they better do that?
Yeah, they have to be leading edge on everything that they're doing with their operations. And what I mean that it's in addition to using the new and emerging technologies that are out there, like what TractorZoom provides as an example. It's giving them great valuation data. You're giving them an ERP system that's designed specifically for their business. So those are some tools. VisorPro obviously fits in that as well too. A tool to help in the aftermarket department to help increase the profitability. But I think it goes beyond that, and that's performance groups. I'm a big fan of that, where dealers are sharing operational best practices with other dealers, and that helps with their sustainability. I'm just amazed when I get the privilege of sitting in a performance group at how complex the business has become, and complexity means incredibly more paying attention to detail, if you will. But if you can learn from a peer who's doing something and sharing information with that peer, that's going to help you. Now, specifically when it comes to manufacturer direct sales, the reality is we are in a sales and service business. And never more so today is the customer relying on an equipment dealer to take care of them after the sale. I think we've got mixed results in manufacturer direct sales, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there was a big direct sale that took place with one of the largest per acre customers headquartered in Western Canada, where there was a direct sale with John Deere, and it's very public. And that got people talking. Is this the model of the future? And I keep thinking probably not for another generation, as long as that customer experience about the repair, the aftermarket sale is good, because manufacturers need dealers to take care of the customer. Um, but in addition to that, I mean, 95% of the time, there's a trade that's taken in. And I don't think the OEMs want anything to do, with those trades. And that's where the dealer comes in. The dealer is taking that risk by buying that trade from that customer. And, we've seen some very successful company stores. Ag Revolution is a great example of that, where AGCO is the owner. But there's some separation there. They're running Ag Revolution, and Stacy and his team is running Ag Revolution like a dealer, like a traditional dealer, and they're managing their trades well. They're not just focusing solely on the AGCO product to blow product out the door to buy share. They're running a very solid business. So I think we may see more models like that than OEMs coming in and just buying a customer and leaving a devastating wake with what happens to the trades, afterward. And I just maintain that as long as we have a very technical product that needs aftermarket support delivered locally by a dealer, and an avenue where that customer's trade is going to go and the customer is going to get fair value for that trade, there's going to be need for an equipment dealership.
Right, right. I heard it put very well at a recent conference that I went to, and they stated that the dealership's competitive advantage against all of this is their local relationships.
Yes.
And what that truly provides are what you said on the service and the product, or the parts side. And then also they make a illiquid asset liquid when it's needed to be in that transition. You
Yeah.
can't sell a new without selling used.
So this was instilled in me at an early age, because I grew up in an equipment dealership. And my grandfather started the dealership in 1931. My dad took over, then my sister and her husband ran it until they sold, and they exited. And it was always, my dad's mentality was, if we take care of them in the back, that means they're going to come in through the door in the front. And if we take care of them after we sold that product, we've got that higher probability they'll continue to buy from us in the future. But one thing that came out of that was dealer loyalty. And I'm a firm believer that if the dealer takes care of that customer, that customer is going to stay loyal to them, because they're local, they're there. And, we've seen consolidation, we've seen our dealership spread out a little bit more. And in that community of 650 people that I grew up in the 1970s, there was 4 equipment dealers there. There's none there today. So now those customers that we had and their children are driving 25 miles down the road to the next nearest dealer. That's acceptable. But is it acceptable to a customer when they have to drive 90 miles down the road, when they're down in harvest and they need something like yesterday to keep running? So there's dealer loyalty that's coming out because of geography. And I just don't see how a manufacturer, with their headquarters 2,000 miles away, is going to be able to satisfy that need for that local attention that customer needs in the most critical times of year.
Right, right. Yeah, a lot has changed, but you still have a short window to plant. You have a short window to harvest, and Mother Nature's not changing that.
Absolutely.
Not that much.
Yeah.
Okay, John. So I want to start to close this up around the AI discussion, and a part of the AI discussion that frankly doesn't get discussed enough, of where to start. How do you actually take practical steps to move forward? So if I'm a dealer principal and now I'm convinced, hey, I do need to modernize, I'm going to bite the bullet. I honestly don't know where I should start. Where should my first step be? What would be your honest recommendation?
Yeah, and obviously I would default to VisorPro, and the reason why I say that is, when a dealer is debating what do I do or how do I get involved in AI, They think that this is going to be a massive transformation in their dealership. It's going to be like changing business systems, where there's just an incredibly heavy lift that's involved. And so my suggestion is you look at this at baby steps, and that's what VisorPro does, where we do all the implementation. We take all of the dealer's data, we put it into a vault, we layer VisorPro 3.0 over it. So when we're up and running and the dealer's ready to go to use it, all they have to do is log in to use the system. And that's what my suggestion would be. Start slow, build up, see what AI can do in your aftermarket department, then look elsewhere. And a lot of conversations I've had with dealers, what they've suggested is what they want is one AI tool that covers off the whole area of the dealership. And if you do that, that is a massive transformation that you would be putting your people under. And you may get pushback from your dealer because of the heavy load that's involved in doing it. Start small, start in steps, in stages, get comfortable with what AI is doing, helping out in one area of the dealership, then look at expanding in other areas like the whole goods department or the customer relationship department. Doing it all at once would be an incredible distraction from the day-to-day priority, which is selling equipment and taking care of the customer. And that's, some of the mistakes I've seen out there is this belief, give me one tool that does it all and our life will be great. I don't look at it that way. It's step by step by step. It's really a staircase, to being to having a comprehensive AI package within the dealership.
Yeah, I think I can hear our data team out there just give a big amen to that one, because I know Hank has always preached. He's like small iterative steps and just try to do that loop as small as you can, as early as you can, and try to either fail or succeed fast.
Yes.
But yes, very bite-sized. Okay, so you've spent your life really, considering that you grew up in a dealership and then all the way till now, and it's all been really in the dealership's corner. If you could tell every equipment dealer in North America right now one thing about AI that you've learned, obviously you didn't inherently know this, 30 years ago, but everything that you've learned here recently, what is one thing that you wish that they understood?
That it's not intimidating, that it's helpful, it's easy to use. Sometimes the most difficult step or the biggest step to take is the first one. And what I've learned is that's a small step right now to get into this. And I think the other thing I would say as well too is don't be afraid of it. I think we might have some employees that are concerned that AI is going to take their job away. At the end of the day, we need a technician to pull a wrench. We need a technician to put that new belt on, right? We need somebody to answer the phone when the customer calls in and is looking for the support that they expect. So there may be some administrative areas where AI can drive efficiencies, but I don't think we should look at it from a fearful standpoint of, this is going to create problems in our business. I think we need to look at it as an opportunity standpoint that this can drive efficiencies within the dealership. So, that message is don't be fearful of this. This is the next thing. Okay. And, referencing my experience, when I was in the dealership, we still had parts cards. We didn't have a business system. But 2 years after I left the dealership and went to university, we brought in a business system. That was the next thing. Then using the internet to support our sales was the next thing. And when I look at AI, it is the next thing, and it's only a matter of time where everybody is going to be adopting this at some level within the dealership. But I'm a firm believer the early adopters are the ones that are going to benefit the soonest and the longest.
That's a great piece of advice, but that's not the last one that I'm going to let you off the hook on.
Okay.
Because I do want to close this podcast like I close all the others with a life lesson. And it can be a book, it can be a quote, it can just be a nugget that you've gained throughout the year. But what is one thing that you'd like to share with our audience?
This is a relationship-based business, and it's based on relationships that run very, very deep. And that means every sector that our dealers involved, they need to build the relationship with their customer, with their staff, with their manufacturers. Make sure you have a good relationship with your manufacturers. It's so easy to be adversarial in that, but I'm a firm believer you have a good relationship with your manufacturers. That's really going to help your business succeed. And then I'll go one step further, and that is on government and our elected officials, our House representatives, our House senators, our congressmen, our senators. It's in your best interests as a dealer to have a good relationship with elected people that are determining policy that impact our business. So there's nothing more valuable to an equipment dealer to have strong relationships in every little area of the business that they touch. And I've seen it where those that are knocking off all of those four strong relationships in all those areas are the ones that are definitely going to be the dealers of the future.
That's fantastic. I've worked in about 5-6 different industries, and I can reiterate that I've never been in one that is so relationship heavy as this one, and it makes it enjoyable.
And the power of a dealer to dealer referral. I'm sure you guys have seen this with Tractor Zoom, where you've had some early adopters who like what you're doing, and they're sharing that experience with you guys with other dealers. I've never seen an industry where that dealer to dealer referral is so powerful. But where does it start? Where does it start? Well, dealer A had a relationship with dealer B for that conversation to even happen. And so that's why I think the power of relationships in a relationship-based business is just incredibly important to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much for that. Thank you for this conversation. I know I've enjoyed it. There's a wealth of information, so I just really appreciate you joining us here on Beyond the Hood.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for having me. All the best to you and your colleagues at Tractor Zoom, and let's hope this economy turns around. We get out of this little bit of a gully that we're in, and we're back in a situation where the equipment business is thriving again. But thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you to all of our listeners out there. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe on all your favorite social media channels, like, share. We talked about that referral works for these old podcasts too. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Beyond the Hood with Tractor Zoom. Thank you and take care.